it is risky for me not to do it because that means I'm guaranteed to work longer at the same company that I want to get out of.
All right, what's up, guys? Today we have special guest Justin Cambra. So you guys are gonna love this one. Justin went from W-2 to financial freedom in 6 years. Super stoked to have you on the show, bro.
Thanks for having me, Daniel. It's been a pleasure getting to see where you live and just experiencing the Hawaii life right now.
Yeah, so you're currently based out of Seattle.
Correct.
And then, so I mean, like, I want to dive into your story of how you, I mean, W-2 working at Amazon to financial freedom in 6 years, which is very crazy, very similar, I feel, to like kind of like my journey. But one of the cool things you mentioned before was that you have a parking lot that you rent out for $3,000 a month. Like, tell me more about that. I'm very interested to hear that.
Exactly. So my very first property I ever bought way back in 2016 is a house hack, and it's a duplex with a large lot. So I was just trying to figure out what the money I had, what is the best options. And I was like, in Seattle, right next to the airport, which is the key factor. So I lived in the top one bedroom, rented the bottom one out. That was covering all the mortgage and everything.
So tell me the numbers in here. So what did you buy it for?
So I bought this property $535 back in 2016. And then I've got like a 3% mortgage on it. So like my monthly cost is about $3,400. And currently I have a medium term rental in the downstairs that pays $3,400.
So basically you're living for free. Like you bought the house and then how much down did you put in the very beginning?
It was 3.5% down on 535, like 20-ish thousand.
So because you're buying to live in, so like you put 3.5% down, 20 grand down out of your pocket.
Right.
Then you live in the top, and then you rent out the bottom and covers your mortgage. You live in for free.
Exactly, 100%. Yeah, and the key is for those people that are just getting started. I could have moved in the bottom, which was a 3-bedroom. But then I wouldn't get very much rent for the top. So I lived in the one bed. So I've been living for the last 8 years in this 1-bedroom. So I never expanded my, like my wants and needs.
But I think that's a really important point because like you're gonna make a sacrifice somewhere, right? So like when you first bought it, you could be like, I want to like live like very like in a nicer one area or a nicer unit, and then kind of rent out for like a little less, but it's gonna be coming more out of your pocket. But you chose to kind of like delay gratification and like live like within your means, and then like now you're building wealth that whole time that you own it.
100%. That's where the speed comes in. You know, you got to increase your income, lower your costs. This is lowering my cost component, which is, and I'd done that the whole 8 years. In hindsight, I would have done more house hacks. More house hacks.
Bought more houses as a live-in like house hacks.
Exactly, like every 1 to 2 years, because as you get investing, like typically an investor loan is 20-25% down. Obviously that's a lot more money than FHA is 3.5%, or now conventional you can do 5% down. So you can buy just a lot more property for less down. And then the appreciation in Seattle has just been bananas.
And so it's crazy too. So like you're owning this house for free, right? So I guess, and then over the last like 9 years that you've owned it, how much do you think it's gone up in value?
Geez, right now it's probably in the range of $950,000 to $1 million. And I'm literally land banking, which is back to the original question. Is this parking? Because I'm like, today I can do 8 houses. I can tear the duplex down and do 8 houses.
Wow. Okay. How big is a lot?
It's 2/3 an acre in Seattle.
Okay, so that's what is that, like 30,000 square feet?
It's just under 33,000 square feet. So I can put 8 houses as of today, and then if I try to upzone, like my neighbor lot, which is the same size, they have 12 units.
Did you know that when you first bought it?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Smart.
Well, it was 4 when I bought it, and then I got upzoned to 8. But my neighbor is the same exact lot, and he's at 12. So if I can get upzoned to where I can do 12, even more money. But how do I make money between now and then? So a friend of mine told me about renting his garage out. I'm like, well, how do you do this? This seems like, because if I can rent out my lot for
like
parking.
Storage, you mean? Like that?
He was renting out his actual garage in his house.
For storage.
Oh,
interesting. Okay.
And so I was like, tell me more. And he's like, there's this app called Neighbor. And I'm like, okay. And so I was in Detroit at the time. He used to work at Amazon, and I was there checking on my properties, told me about it from when I left the Starbucks to the airport, downloaded the app, put up pictures of my property, wrote a description, and I listed 1 parking stall for rent.
I love it. I feel like this is like a pattern I see in a lot of like very successful people is the time from idea to action is very fast. So you guys you're chatting, I guess, in Detroit, you're visiting, you guys met, you kind of, hey, there's a great idea. before you even like made it to the airport, boom, it's already happening in action, and the things are rolling and things are happening.
And that was towards the middle to the end of January of 23.
Okay.
Get my first booking in February, and then you get paid after the month.
Okay.
So then I think I got my first payment like the second of March of 2023. That was the first stall.
So you have like is it just like your house, and you have like stalls in front of your house?
Yeah.
And then so like you rented out the first stall for how much?
Yeah. So the first one I think was $150.
Okay.
But now they range from because I have a ton of stalls. So the reason why I have all this paved parking is that the guy next door I bought my house from, he split the lot, and my duplex with the parking used to be the parking for the 12-plex next door. So I had all this paved parking, and I don't even know how many cars. I can probably put like 30 cars or something like that on there.
So you kind of bought it, or the parking lot was already kind of like set in place. You didn't have to like pave it or do anything for that.
Exactly. And then here's the ironic part. I didn't do anything for 6 years.
So it's just an empty parking lot.
Empty parking lot. And because it wasn't getting used, it was literally getting overgrown. Like you could even see it. Right. So what I was doing is like, as my parking lot income came in, I would then bring landscapers out, move back all the shrubs. And then over like about a 4-month span, the money that was coming in, I cleared the entire lot.
Wow, okay.
And then it was just all the paved
So you had like
area.
more parking at that point in time. So.
Exactly. So, fast forward to today, like I use this app called Neighbor. There's other apps out there like Pure Storage. I've tried that out, but I'm over $3,000 a month.
Wow.
So it's about 20 stalls at $150 a stall.
Is there any kind of zoning or anything, or like how does that work? Can anybody just turn like their house and like empty their lawn into like a parking lot?
Well, it's on like one of those don't ask, don't tell.
Oh,
so
I see.
The way it's structured is like you actually have to go up. Kind of like with your house, you kind of go up the hill. Got to go up the hill past my house, and then it's just a large parking lot. So no one can see it from the street.
I see.
Nor did I ask anybody. I just did it.
I'm just curious, like like that's just I'm just wondering like if some of the people in the viewers who like let's say they have like a big yard, if they can just turn it into a parking lot or what that would entail. So
yeah, generally it's not an issue. Like right now, like as I left Amazon, I got my license to help buy my own real estate and help people. Some of my clients, like we'll find properties. Like one client, I helped her buy a duplex. It's on a half acre. There's about a quarter acre of just gravel.
Yeah.
And so like as her like gift, I set out cones, did some drone footage. She's now making over $600 a month just on the parking, and she has a duplex there.
It's so smart. I feel like, because you're always looking in today's market, it's harder and harder to find cash flow. So I think you're always looking for creative ways where you can like, let's say like cut down my mortgage or create more cash flow, whether it's your primary residence or a rental property that you own. I think just like thinking outside the box to own like a lot where there's been enough space to have like parking, and then you rent it out on these apps. So is it like similar to like Airbnb or like for like parking or something? Or how does Neighbor work?
Same setup. It's like, I think it's like 3%. So out of the the 150, it's like $4 or $5 that they take, and it's automatically tracked, and it's just like Airbnb where you're getting here's who's coming in, here's the income per month. Here's your booked revenue, actual revenue, year to date, lifetime to date. It's pretty cool.
That's so genius because especially in Hawaii, I feel like there's a lot of places where there is no parking.
Right.
And I think a lot of people they don't even like think of that as an idea. Like actually, maybe I can like rent out my parking stall, or I can like turn it into like a income stream or additional stream of income. So
exactly. I mean, we're actually, we flew into town for my fiance's work event. We were going to get a rental car.
Okay.
To have the hotel pay parking every day, I think it's $75 a day.
I mean, Waikiki in downtown is stupid
bananas.
expensive. Yeah.
So if you're anywhere remotely close, and you could rent it out for much cheaper. Like I rent $150 per month. Half of my clients are actual people that are going to the airport, and the other half are kind of local businesses that need to have their cars parked there.
I see.
And so like for $150, the math equates to, if you're taking a trip for 7 days or more, it's cheaper to rent from my place, get
a whole month,
and then Uber to the airport and back. It's cheaper than parking anywhere near the airport.
Wow, that's really interesting. That's really interesting.
Most people international go for more than 7 days, and so like that's what's totally filled it up.
So I mean, if somebody in Hawaii were to buy something near the airport
Mm-hmm.
with a big enough lot, right? So you have
Mm-hmm.
a house where you're living, but then
Yep.
plan it with a lot involved, and then like just pave it if it's not paved, or maybe you can just like park unpaved,
Yeah.
and then just charge like on Neighbor or one of these apps, and then when people go to the airport, they'll park it to your house,
Mm-hmm.
and then like drive to the airport. I mean, it sounds very very interesting.
Yeah,
Maybe,
they just Uber to and from, and all the marketing is done by the app. So it's like,
and I feel like a lot of guys, maybe like their rental car companies or Turo guys, like local guys like this who have like a Turo business, they're always looking for parking stalls, right? So like if it's near the airport and like they're like, hey, like can I just rent this land from you to hold my Turo cars or whatever? That must also be like another customer of yours.
I do actually. I have 2 cars on Turo.
Okay.
And I have a client with 2 cars on Turo. So there's 4 of the stalls.
Wow.
Obviously, I'm not paying for my stalls, but this other guy is paying me for the stalls.
So you're making money like a lot of different ways on in this house hack situation.
Exactly. And the thing that I was working on with this guy, he's got a Rivian and a Tesla, and he's like, hey, any way I could hook up to your house? And I'm like,
electric.
Well, let me go see it. I was like, can I get a grant from the city, right? So they're out of grant money, but in 2025, I'm going to see if I can get a grant to put one of the, like a charging bank. So then I can make money, like somebody rents the stall from me, but if they move out, and I get a small, income off of all the cars that come in and get charged. So there's just another level, another income stream.
I mean, I just love the out of box creativity and the ingenuity in this, because like there's so many ways to make money, but then like a lot of times like people they don't think of it, right? So like it's like now that you're kind of like, not just you have this idea, somebody who's watching and be like, actually that's a great idea. Maybe I already have the land, I already have the lot, like I'll do this. Or the next guy's like, hey, when I'm looking for my next house to live in, I'm gonna look for one with a lot involved. And in fact, for myself, maybe I'm gonna my next house, I'm gonna look for like a big piece of land where I can actually have like a extra lot or something.
Extra land, there's so many options, right? Because like technically, like this is short-term money. Like the end game is I'm gonna rip my duplex down, and put a bunch of townhomes in. So
which is a big thing I think in Seattle right now, right? Where like they're tearing down like single family houses and like building with like a bigger units to like maximize like the square footage of like and I think the similar things is happening in Hawaii to a certain extent too.
Yeah, the number one thing that everyone wants in Seattle, single family zoning, because if the house is towards the front or towards the back, and decent size, we'll keep it. If not, we tear the existing home down and do a single family with an ADU, so an attached accessory dwelling in it, and then a separate detached dwelling in it. And at the end, in 2025, the whole state of Washington, every single family lot, you can do a single family into 2 detached.
So I mean, Hawaii is trending in the same direction. The governor just passed something where it's going to be a minimum of 2 ADUs per house. Before it used to be like 1. So I think there's a huge housing crisis and they're trying to solve it. But then like whenever there's like a crisis and there's like new like legislation, if you're first in, like you're going to get to take advantage, and there's like a ton of opportunities for you to increase value, whether it's cash flow or the property value of like of your units or your rentals.
Exactly. It's like overnight. It's like once the law was passed, I think it was in 2023, there's 2 years for every city, a jurisdiction to update it. Once that happened, regular single family homes like overnight went up if they have a large lot in the alley and like the placement of the houses in the right spot.
So tell me, I mean, can you walk me through what the numbers look like on, let's say, have you done any of these like ADUs or DADUs?
Yep. I'm doing my first one right now.
Okay.
So I bought it last year, Cinco de Mayo, single family home, just over 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
7,200 square foot lot.
Okay.
And so what I did is I condoized it.
How much was the house and the lot together?
The purchase price all in was $480.
Okay.
And then the rehab, the plan was to do $90, but ended up being way above that.
For the ADU or the DADU?
For the DADU, so like that'll be around $350.
Okay.
And then the DADU will be worth probably $625, $650.
Okay.
Yeah. And then the main house is going to be roughly the same size, about 1,000 square feet.
Okay.
So both of them would be about $650 when they're done. So the main house, it's like you're trying to break even or better, and then you make all the money on the dadu. On these dadus, you can make, where I'm at, you're kind of in the 150 to 200,000. But if you're Seattle proper or north of Seattle, say you build it for 400, you're selling for 700 and 800.
Yeah.
So now you're in the 300,000 to 400,000.
There's a big spread in the range of like what you can build versus what you can sell that for.
100%. Yeah.
And I think I like, the thing is like the more expensive the neighborhood, the better your margin on your build to sell ratio. 100%. So like, let's say like if you take a place, like let's say like when I first started like in Indianapolis, like the cost to build a brand new house would be like 300,000, and when it's done, you can sell it for 100,000. So like It's like you're like lose money from the build cost, right?
Yeah.
But in Hawaii, let's say like you buy a lot for like $1 million, you spend like let's say 500 to build it, it's worth like 3 million because like it's just like the land and the area will gentrify it more than like the build cost.
100%. Which because I'm most of my I'd say roughly 75% in the Midwest.
Okay.
And it's all like that. The replacement value is higher than I can sell the house.
Yeah.
Because like I'm selling 3 houses right now. They're all duplexes. I'm selling them for about 160. But to build those duplexes today would be like $400,000 or $500,000.
It's crazy how much that is, right? Like the build cost is like more than the replacement cost in a lot of these things.
So when you're I've had some insurance claims lately. So if you are doing insurance, make sure. Is it cash value or ACV? Or a depreciated value? Because or I should say replacement value versus the cash value. Because they're two.
Can you explain that to us?
Yeah. So if you do replacement value, it would be
like, so you own let's say a rental in the Midwest or like one of the places where it's like the build cost is more than the replacement cost is more than the actual value. So then you're trying to get insurance for this. What do you need to look out for?
You want full replacement value. Now that's in the perfect world, right? Now obviously that's going to cost you more because if it's worth 160, like if I sell it for 160, let's just say it cost me 400 to build. Like the insurance company has the same economics, and so they're not going to want to pay out. So they charge you a much higher premium for that.
I see.
And typically what they could do is just say like, well, here's 160, just go buy a new one instead of giving you the money to build a new one. So that's one option. The other option is what's called, I think it's ACV, something cash value. So it basically takes what the property was worth and then over time it depreciates. So, theoretically, if it burns down, the depreciated value might only be 80,000.
I see.
So obviously much cheaper insurance premium. But if you do have a catastrophic event, you're getting a lot less money.
I see. So what are you like going for like the replacement value in all of your properties?
So like with me, like as I started, it was like mass expansion. And I was doing all the cash value.
Okay.
So now as I'm going, I'm switching that. As I'm buying bigger and better stuff, I want replacement value. But when I was starting out, I was like,
trying to like maximize your cash flow, like
exactly,
like more risk, but then also like more cash flow, right? So
exactly. Now, the flip side of it in my mind was like, if what I was buying back in 2016, 17 was like 60 to 80,000. So like, if that house burned down and I didn't get all the insurance money,
I see. Like
not the end of the world.
You're short of like 10, 20 grand.
Yeah.
It's not like you're short like 100 grand or something.
Versus in Seattle, it would have been hundreds of thousands of dollars difference,
So, I mean, like you went from W-2 to financial freedom in 6 years. How did you do that? Like, what were you doing as a W-2? And then like, how did you transition?
Yeah. So W-2 world, that whole time as I was building it up was working at Amazon.
Amazon, like the Amazon website, Amazon?
Exactly. Okay. Yep. And I had like 3 different phases there. First phase, I got my MBA at Berkeley, and I moved. I was in California at the time. Then I moved back, and that was specifically in finance.
Okay.
Because I wanted to have my own business, and so I was like, I need to learn finance.
Okay.
Then I was like, I can do it. I don't really like it. So then I moved into what's called business development.
Okay. Within Amazon.
Amazon, right? And then my third phase, I had already got into real estate, and I was like, man, I like real estate so much. Why don't I get a job where Amazon pays me to do real estate?
Interesting.
So the last 3 years I was at Amazon, I was in at the time it was called Global Specialty Fulfillment.
Okay.
And I would help them find warehouses across the U.S.
Interesting.
Yeah, ranging from like the campus stores, or I think they're called pickup now. Those would be like 1,000 square feet. All the way to distribution centers, it would be like 1,000,000 square feet.
Wow.
And the 3 years that I was doing that was literally the week I started was the week of the pandemic in 2020.
Wow, that's
and it was basically get whatever you can get because it was just, off the charts volume that was coming in. So I was doing leases, about $1 billion a year in leases.
Wow, that's crazy.
And there's multiple real estate groups there because they've got the the shipping component, they got the warehousing component, they have, you know, the data center components. And the group I was in was the smallest, and I was doing probably $1 billion a year. That's crazy. That just shows you the scale of how big Amazon is, right?
I mean, like, number one, that's crazy, like Amazon. But then there's also like your journey. So like you started out in finance, and you went into like business development,
right? And
then there's like at one point in time, did you find real estate or real estate investing?
So I had just gotten the job. I had gotten the job in 2013 at Amazon, and then I was going through a couple years, and I was in the Dave Ramsey model. I literally was taking my RSUs, restricted stock units, and then I was selling them, and I paid off all my debts. I was debt free around like 2015. When you say
debt, mean like your credit cards, your mortgage? What do you mean like that?
And the biggest one was education. It was like 100 and something thousand.
Because like you're from Berkeley, that's
from Berkeley, right? So I had paid all that off, and then I was like, at the time, I was like, I hate working at Amazon because it was a slug. You know, they would take every hour they could out of you, right? Nights and weekends and all that. So then what my kind of trigger point was, my dad had got diagnosed with cancer, and then he had worked his whole life. He had his own business, and I'm like, man, I'm doing the same thing. I cannot do this. And then I was like, I need to figure something out that, you know, an average Joe could do to make money. And then that's kind of how I stumbled upon real estate.
Did you like Google it, or how would you?
I was Googling it, and then, you know, I found Bigger Pockets. I found podcasts at the time, and then I was like, oh, I think I can do this.
Yeah.
And at the time I was renting, and I was like, well, let me, at the time I called it an and one.
Okay.
Because like, what if I lived there and then I rented it? That'd be, you know, at the time I didn't know there was
double, right? I mean, like at the time, like there's no such thing. Like, house hacking wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing then.
There was no social media back into like 2013, right? So like, you're still trying to figure out yourself just from like kind of bits and pieces of the internet.
Exactly. Yeah. And then, you know, then my dad passed from cancer in 2017.
Sorry to hear that.
That was like where I took off. I was like heads down. That's all I did, and I kind of rearranged my life. I read The Miracle Morning, and
Hal
Elrod, and then instead of being a night owl, I shifted everything to the morning. So like, get up at 5, I drive into work, I work out. There's showers at work.
So at Amazon, you guys had like a workout session. I mean, like rooms and showers and everything over there.
They didn't have workout spots, so I would just like run around. There's a lake there, so I'd run around Lake Union. I'd go shower. I'd be, you know, showered into the office 6:30. All my properties were in the Midwest.
Okay.
So that's 2 hours ahead.
Okay.
So from 6:30 to 8, that was me being an investor.
Okay.
And then around 8 a.m., now I'm at Amazon
employee.
Boom, punching the clock. And then, you know, lunchtime, and then after work, you know, I'm networking, I'm listening to podcasts, I'm putting in offers after work.
I mean, I feel like I had the exact same story. Like, I had an epiphany when I was working as a software developer, W2.
Yeah.
Mine was like Rich Dad Poor Dad. So I was like, hey, this is like amazing. Then I went down the bunny trail of like Google, Bigger Pockets, podcasts, forums, reading books. And then during the day from 9 to 5, I was at my developer job. But then like early mornings and afterwards, it was like just consuming as much investing material and just like starting to try buy some houses in the Midwest where like I thought it was like more affordable and there's more cash flow.
100%. Yeah, and I'm imagining being software, you were making good money.
Not really actually. Like,
really?
Like I mean, like in Hawaii, they don't pay very good. So like, I was renting, like no savings. Like I basically like made nothing for like almost like very little. Like I don't even want to tell you how much I made. It was like very little. So like.
Yeah, I mean that's the very fortunate thing. Like I got my MBA, went to Amazon. You know, I was supposed to get paid, I think around 180-ish, but obviously the stock went. You know, so like I was supposed to get paid 180, but I was averaging like 200,000. Like really my peak was like 250.
So okay.
But you know.
The golden handcuffs too.
The golden handcuffs, yeah. Because like even when I left there, I don't even know what the stocks would be worth today. But you're always leaving because you have a 2-year vest cycle.
I see.
So I gave up 2 years of vest, but I'm like, you know, when I went to leave, it wasn't necessarily the cash flow. What really triggered the hey, it's time to jump was I did a flip and a wholesale in my what I call legacy home buyers. That's like my active business.
Okay.
And actually both of those deals were with James Daner, which is like a very well-known guy now on Bigger Pockets, but specifically in the Northwest. And so we joint ventured on a deal. I wholesaled on a deal. I netted between those two deals about $100,000. and that was in 6 months.
Yeah.
In 2022. In 6 months in 22 at Amazon, I made about 100,000.
So you're looking at the time spent, right? Like in Amazon, you're working like long hours and kind of like you're devoting your life to this.
Yeah.
Versus in the same span of like 6 months, but you probably worked a lot less. It's just like a little bit of like skill and a certain like targeted focus. You made just as much or if not more in like within the real estate investing.
100%. It was like over 80% is the Amazon, right? And then I was like 20% that was you know my legacy home buyer. So I just inverted that ratio. I'm like, I should be able to make 4x the amount of money.
Yeah.
And that was, and then I was like, as a backstop, I'll get my license as well, because then that's just another revenue
additional stream of income, right? So,
exactly. And you know, I'm very blessed because before leaving Amazon, for the last 3 years, I created this group called Real Estate at Amazon.
Okay, tell me about that. So
in that group, it was started out. I was like. Through a mentor, in the Northwest, there's a guy named Taro Yarber.
Okay.
He created.
You're hitting all the heavy hitters here. So you got James Daynard, Taro Yarber. Okay.
Yeah. Well, Taro used to do these meetups, and he called it the Big Badass PNW Wealth Expo. There's a huge long name. Well, the funny thing is he would do these VIP dinners. The only way to do a VIP dinner is you had to win one of the charity auction. I bid the highest price. So I'm like, I'm going to that dinner because Jay Scott's there, Brandon Turner's there, David Green was there, and the president, I forget his name, Scott Trench was there.
Okay.
I'm like, I'm going to this dinner. So I bid on these silent auction items.
If you don't mind sharing, how much did it cost?
One was 1,000 and one was 750. I was like, I'm gonna get one, so I did two to make sure, and I ended up getting both.
Nice.
One of them actually was a half a day with James Daynard.
Okay, that's a lot. The people don't realize how valuable these things are. Like you just spend a day with a guy at that level, and like it changes like who you are as a person. Like you just kind of like by osmosis, you kind of absorb like their belief system and like how they see the world, and like that when you come back, it's like you're a different person. So what you can accomplish after like just a day with like a guy like James Daynard or Brandon Turner, like it'll change. It could literally change the trajectory of your life.
100%. And that actual half day, like I got it. Gosh, I want to say it was like April. I didn't cash that in until October. Okay. Because I was in a mastermind that I paid some guys to help me to learn how to wholesale. And I'm like, I'm not going to go to spend the day because he's very well known at wholesale and he's got a brokerage and all that. I was like, I'm going to wait till I get a deal and I'm going to take it to him and see how to do it. So I get the deal, and then I'm like, "Hey James, I'm gonna cash in my charity auction thing." He's like, "Yeah, come on down." So I review the deal, and he's like, "I think he's like, I'll give you $20,000 right now for it if you want to sell it." Okay. Or he goes, or you can partner with me. I'm like, done. I'll partner. I don't even care about making the money. Let's just do the deal. Yeah. So we ended up doing that deal together, and it closes. It's supposed to close March of 2020. Okay. That's obviously like the COVID, pandemic, right? COVID. So then, James goes, "Hey, I committed to you. I'm going to do this deal, but we don't even know what the world's going to happen. Yeah. So if you can go get a better price, see what you can do." So then I went back. I was able to get $20K off the price. Well, we ended up making $100,000 gross on that deal, and then 50-50 each on that one deal. That was the first one we did. Then we did another deal after that. We made like 80-ish. Wow. And then I wholesaled him a deal. But that was that one. But then the other deal that I won on that charity auction was a guy named Will Bernard. Okay. He's like one of the most prolific commentators on Bigger Pockets. Okay. So, and he lived in LA. So I was like, well, I want to exercise that, but I'm going to fly down and meet you. So instead of doing like a couple hours on the Zoom, I'm like,
the in-person is so much more impactful and so much more.
And so I flew down there, and this is like out of a movie. He's like, meet me at this. I think it was a hotel conversion or something like that. And it was probably like 12 units in somewhere in LA. Okay. And he's at the very end. He's just sitting there on a chair reading a paper. And I meet him, and he's just a cool guy. And then I was telling him about myself and what I'm doing, and I told him I worked at Amazon. And he's like, you haven't created a meetup yet? I'm like, no. He's like, you'd be the dumbest person I know if you don't go make this meetup with all these people who have money that don't know how to invest in real estate. I flew home that next week. I started it.
So smart. I mean, like, number one is genius. Like the idea of like what you have like this huge like opportunity that you just don't see. So it takes a guy like what was his name?
Will Bernard.
To just kind of like open your eyes to what it is. But then the second thing is that you immediately take action. And I think like that just speaks to like the success that you had so far. Is like you learn something and then you just apply like as soon as like the next day or so.
Yeah, it was literally like the next week, and I was just like, well, I don't know who's gonna show up. It was pandemic time. I'm just gonna start it, and so then I started it. There's 2 people showed up. By the time, and that was December 2019. By September, Labor Day of 2022, when I left, I think there's around 1,300.
Crazy. So from the first meetup was 2 people, and then the was a year and a half later, and then it's like 1,300 people. That is crazy.
And then as I was planning to leave, I created a real estate. It's called Real Estate at Amazon.
Okay.
So then I created a committee and brought other people in, and it's still going. Now it's like 2,500 people all across.
Crazy.
Most of them are in the U.S., but some are international as well. But that whole thing led me into that. I was doing like the first 30 I was presenting how to invest in real estate. When you first started,
like you're like from the ground up, you're bootstrapping it. So like here's what I know, like I'm like from my knowledge, what I've gained. So let me just share with like all you people who know absolutely nothing. You're like a couple steps ahead, and then so like that's how you started. So
that's how I started, and then and I grew it from like 0 to 100, and then as I started building this committee out, there's this guy Brandon Bramley. He was part of what was called Outdoors at Amazon, which was like a massive group. It was like 4,000 or 5,000. I'm like, hey, you want to come over here and tell me what you did to do that? And we just did exactly the same thing. Went from 100 people to 1,000 people in short order.
I mean, so that's crazy. What does a meetup like? What does that even look like? How do you get like? Is it like one giant conference center? Like, and how often are you guys having these meetups?
So it is today, but back then it was in COVID. There was no one working, so it was all virtual.
Okay.
So, the first 2 were in person.
Okay.
Because it was right before COVID.
Okay.
Then once COVID happened, everything went virtual, and so I would say probably average attendance, maybe like depending on the guests and all that, probably 80-ish people would show up, and it was during the lunch hour.
So like a Zoom, like a virtual Zoom meetup kind of thing.
Exactly.
And you guys do like breakout rooms, or how do you structure it?
No breakout rooms. It was just
one giant Zoom. Everybody just like
exactly.
unmute, and one guy's the baby's crying or whatever.
Yeah. Well, we didn't have it was just me leading it all, and then people would type in their questions.
It's like a webinar style. So,
yeah.
Okay.
And it evolved into me doing them all, to then having other Amazonians in there, and the purpose is like, hey guys, we make all this money.
Yeah.
Let's figure out how to use that money to
do bigger and better, cooler things.
Yeah. And so I did that, and then like as I started getting to meet other people like James and Tarl and stuff, I started bringing expert, industry experts in.
The thing is, like, once you start to build an audience, you have something of value to present to people. Right. I think a lot of times when you're trying to like, people are trying to get a mentor or somebody to like kind of like help them out, like there's a huge value disparity, right? Because like, let's say you've been doing real estate for like say 8 years, you've done a ton of deals. I'm brand new. I'm like, what value can I bring to you, right? Like, but number one is maybe I can work for you for free. I can pay you to mentor me, or maybe like if I have an audience or like a platform, if I can bring you into the platform, that's value for you.
100%. Yeah. I mean, if you're an investor looking for capital, who wouldn't want to talk to people who the average income is probably 200,000 that was attending.
And they don't know what to do with it, right?
Yeah. Which are, effectively accredited investors, which every syndicator wanted. So like, we were able to get, obviously we had James a couple times, and then Leica's in Seattle. She came on. Who do we have? And then ultimately we got into the Bigger Pockets crew.
Okay.
So we had Sarah Weaver came on there, Jay Scott, and then ultimately we had Brandon Turner. So one of the guys that was in the real estate committee lives in Hawaii and is friends with Brandon. Okay. And so we were able to coordinate that. Nice. But my very last episode, I had Will Bernard. Okay. Because he's the guy that started the whole thing. Like that. He started it, and then he was my last guest. It was kind of a full circle moment. It was awesome.
That's so cool. How many? I mean, so like how often are you guys having these meetups?
So they still go on.
Okay.
Two per month is a typical.
Okay.
And obviously I'm not involved
anymore.
Are you
still virtual, or is it?
Now are in person. So I usually go back twice a year. So usually my anniversary date of leaving. So I'll be there in like September coming up. And then usually, kind of somewhere in the, call it March timeframe. So I go back and I give like, themes of what I'm thinking is important for them now. So like last year, obviously, mass layoffs at Amazon. And I was like, the time is now. You guys make all this money.
Make them. Buy something now before you get laid off, basically.
Exactly.
Right?
And the rates were like super low then, right? Now it's like, now there's layoffs, but the rates are much higher. But I brought all that up to say that like I'm very blessed because it parlayed into another revenue stream to where I got my license to help me do deals. Because I go to try to wholesale, buy something to wholesale. But if they wanted retail, then now I can be I can list it for you.
That's one of the cool things about being an agent and investor is like you can present a lot of options to like a seller.
Right.
Like you can, hey, here's a cash offer, or I can find you an end buyer, or I can just list it for you.
Right.
Whatever like fits like your particular situation and your goals.
100%. And I really have like a smorgasbord. Here's your cash quick now. I'll buy it, creative finance. I'll do a hybrid where, I'm the investor, I'll fund the rehab, and then me as an agent will list it. And then here's what it would do if it's already ready to list. Here, I'll list it for you. So I'm giving them a spectrum of options such that, me versus somebody else, I can give something that I have.
You're going to fit the tool to like that, to the situation versus just like, it's always a hammer. Like you only can use the hammer. So
exactly. And, I'm very blessed. That whole real estate ad has parlayed into my real estate agent business. So
how did you, so what was the steps from like the, just kind of starting out to like gaining all like, so now you have like 45 properties, 120 doors, like, how did you like gain such a big portfolio in like such a short amount of time?
So quite frankly, a lot of the properties I bought, like Indianapolis, right? They're expensive. They're under 100,000. When I was really ramping up, which was, my first time to Milwaukee was August of 2017.
Okay.
And then I bought in October of that same year. So 2 months later, then I was like, all right, get another one. So then bought in October, then bought in December of 2017. Then I just was buying about every other month.
Is it, but funding it from like your real estate commissions and wholesale fees? Is that kind of like what?
So I wasn't an agent then. I had like no costs because like I was house hacking. So I had like no housing costs. So all my income.
So even though you're making like $200 a year, you're living for free in this house hack.
In a 1-bedroom.
So you're saving a crap ton of money like during this time. So
exactly. Yep. And at the same time, the stock that I had, obviously was.
What my problem is that like I feel like when I make more money, I start to spend it more. Like that. Yeah. How do you like stop? Because like it just the problem. It seems like whenever you have money in your bank account, it's available to spend.
Right.
And so like I think for me and like a lot of people is like, well, I got this much money. Like now I want to buy something, or I want to take a vacation, or I want to do something. How do you stop yourself from like just like spending the money that you're saving?
So part of the, kind of through the masterminds, you obviously have the Hal Elrod we talked about earlier.
Okay.
He talks about scribing, I think is what his, but then, as I'm, one of my other mentors is Thatch Wen. So he's talking about like writing down he calls them GEMs, gratitudes, experience, and manifesting. So, the gist of it is that every day I'm writing down what I want. If you have that in front of you, like you're not going to buy the car, right? Like I have a 2006 Dodge Charger, right? It's almost 20 years old. I'm not buying a new car because I want liquidity. I want more properties. I want freedom.
Would you mind sharing what your gems are? What your goals are you looking at every day?
Yeah, actually, I just wrote them down today. So like gratitude is like friends and family. The experience is I want consistent and be persistent and have like hunger and desire to conquer, do things that are light. I want to win.
So that's experience. Like
experience. And then manifesting is like, I want $1 million of liquidity at all times. I want to make $1 million as an agent, $1 million as a wholesaler, $1 million in my investment portfolio. And then I'm building out a W-2 to freedom, like coaching and digital product.
So you're looking at these goals every day. And so like your morning routine is like, you get up, you're sometime doing that morning routine, you're literally like writing this down and reviewing them.
Yeah. Yeah. And it's, back to Bigger Pockets. So Brandon Turner came out with this book. I think it's called The Intention Journal.
Okay, yeah.
And it literally, because I'm more of an ink it, think it, like
okay.
literally writing it down.
I feel there's a power to that. Like, like when I went to like trying to type it on my computer, like as like a, let's say text, is very different than you get a physical pen and you get a notepad and you just like write in your journal inside a notepad. It's like you absorb it information and you're able to process ideas differently when you do it like that.
The retention top of mind is huge. And so I bought I don't even know how many Brandon Turner intention journals off Bigger Pockets, but you write it down every day. The gems is not part of what he is, but what he has is like your 3 90-day goals.
Okay.
And then of those goals, what's the plan for the week? And then he calls it MINS, most important next step. So it could literally be like, hey, if you're trying to buy a property this week, you want to find an agent. The next most important next step is call 5 agents or call 1 agent. You're just trying to break it down to just one little micro thing and then get it done. Because like if I look back and like, bias for action is one of my things. But the other thing is like I live by all great things come from the power of the increment. That's literally what I do. I just do some little thing every day. And then after 8 years, that's what it's built into.
So, I mean, like, just kind of break down this process. Like, you kind of have like set a goal, like whether it's like a year or like however long out. Yeah. How do you work backwards to find your min or your most important next step?
You just kind of chunk it back. So if like, I work with some people now on goal setting. Like if you want to buy a property in 6 months,
let's take a bigger goal. Let's take one of your goals. So like you want to make $1 million in wholesaling, right?
Yeah.
Break us down to like what you do to get to your mins.
Yeah. So just for simple math, let's say it's $20,000 for a wholesale fee.
Okay.
Well, now you need to get like 50 deals.
Okay.
And then theoretically that would be like 1 deal a week.
Okay.
To do 1 deal a week, well, how many then you go to your sales funnel. Okay. How many people you're talking to, how many appointments do you get, how many offers you get out, and then of those offers, how many get accepted, right? And so that's what you're trying to build backwards from. It's like at the end of the day, it comes specifically on the wholesaling is like, I need to do 5 contacts, 10 contacts, whatever that number is based on your conversion rate. That's what would get you to, in this example, 1 deal a week to get to 50 for the year.
And then when you're doing that, like your mins, is it like you're resolving it every single day, or is it like it's already solved and like you're just rewriting it down?
I rewrite it every day. Because the min, like specifically in that example, a lot of it will be the same. Because wholesaling really just comes down to your reps, your reps of calls, your reps of texts, your reps of letters. Because then that way you're going to have more quality conversations with sellers. But it just kind of depends what the goal is. But every day it's what is that most important next step. So like for a while I have or actually it's right now because I'm got to finish my 2023 taxes, right? Okay. So like the most important next step was email the accountant and ask for, they put everything in the ask my accountant. It's kind of like what is this stuff? Yeah. So I asked them for that because I know I have to then slot it into all the buckets and then send it back to them. Okay, that would be like one is ask for it. 2 is fill it out. That'd be like the next day, right? And then the third day would be like, okay, now I need to tell them what were the new properties I bought and give them the settlement statement. So like,
wait, when you at least they're kind of sequential, right? You have to do one before you can do the other.
Exactly.
But then like when you're writing it down in your like your mins or your daily, is it like are you writing down the whole sequence or are you just writing like down the next step?
The next step. Okay. Yeah. So you have your big goal, and then what are you doing for the week, and then what is like the actual
just for today? Like what do I need to do for today?
Yeah. And it doesn't mean you get everything done today, but if you're writing those down, like more often than not, you're gonna
I mean, like the thing is, like, so whenever you track or you put a pen to paper, like it's like you're holding yourself accountable. Like it's you kind of like you can't just like forget about it because like you're actually like physically like writing it down and like reviewing it before you start your day.
Yep. 100%. Yep.
So cool. Okay, so I mean, just your journey is fascinating to me, just because like you've done so much in such a short period of time, and then like I always like to see like how someone like yourself has accomplished it. Like like there's obviously like a mindset and there's like a bias for action, but is there anything else like on your journey that you feel like has made you like so successful?
obviously the consistent action over time, but it's like today's an example, right? Mm-hmm. Like I'm here, like my fiance is here for a work thing. Mm-hmm. And like instead of being at the beach, like this morning I met with the investor fireman, Mark. We had breakfast and so connecting with other real estate investors over time, doing this podcast, learning about what you're doing, seeing how you do your podcast so it can help me. So just having that network consistent over time, because that's what's going to help you. Because like at the breakfast, Mark brought a friend of his, Rincey, I think her name was, and I was telling her, you got to get around us because your other friends don't know what we do.
Yeah.
And they think you're probably like joining some cult, right? Like Scientology or, whatever. So you have to hang out with other real estate investors that can help you, because like it's you don't get there overnight. Yeah. It's a long-term span. And so for me, it was 6 years. For some people, it's 10 years. Some that have more active businesses, it's shorter. But you have to be hanging around these people over time that will get you through, because you're gonna have pains.
Yeah, I mean,
learning pains.
It's such a good point you bring. I think like whatever you surround yourself with, you're gonna kind of like obsess over it, right? And it's gonna expand. I think when I first started, I was just consuming books and podcasts, and like so I wasn't around people physically, but like basically like all my free time was like I was spending time with Brandon Turner and like David Green, these guys, just through their books or through their podcasts. Eventually I got into rooms like people like yourself, where now we could have a back and forth conversation, and it's been so helpful to kind of like take my mind or like my ability to do things like to another level just by being surrounded by like people like yourselves.
Yeah, today, there's obviously physical mentors, right? Because you're the guy in Vegas,
Ryan Pineda,
right? Yes. But like before you even met Ryan Pineda, he's got so much content out. He could be a virtual mentor for anybody.
Yeah.
Like I was with like Thatch Wynn, right? Still in his mentorship stuff. So they produce mass amount of content. Just by listening to that over time, just like writing down your goals and your next steps. If de facto, your virtual mentor.
You can't help but just be changed by it. Yeah. It's like the inputs create the outputs. Yeah. So like the more you consume, like you fill your mind with like garbage, you're gonna like give out garbage, right? You fill your mind with like knowledge on finances, on investing and things. You can't just help but like absorb it and then like and do outputs with it.
Yeah, and it literally helps you gravitate to them. So like there's a guy, Michael Zuber, One Rental at a Time. Listen to him. At least 5 times a week.
Okay.
He puts out mass content. I go to his like meetups and stuff. Well, one of his people that he has on frequently is Dion McNeely. Okay. Dion Talk is his YouTube handle, and he's about being he even calls himself a lazy investor. Okay. And I've been hanging out with him a lot because he's over in my neck of the woods, and I'm like, gosh, he's doing it right, because I think he has 18 units. Predominantly, his debt ratio is sub 50%. Wow! So he has a lot of equity, a lot of cash flow on less units. Now look at me, like at the peak I was at 125. I've sold some off, but my cash flow is much less because I have higher debt. I see. And then I have these turnovers, and I'm like, dang. He is right. Like I'm liking this because
it's always. I mean, it's always a balance between like debt, like and leverage and no leverage. When I think like when you're first starting, especially if you don't have money, you have to use leverage because that's like the only thing you have. Right? So you have to leverage debt, other people's money, banks' money, in order so you can scale. Once you get to a certain point, I feel like it's like it frees up your weight on your mind to have like less debt. So I think like my goal is like, hey, I'm gonna accumulate mass debt, build like a big, I guess, like equity piece. Eventually, I'm just gonna retire with like 10 properties in Hawaii, pay off free and clear. That's like that, and then there's 100% cash flow, So.
Exactly, and kind of where my head's at. My motto for this year has been less is more. So I can do less properties that are more efficient to kick off more cash flow. And my thought is like, why don't I build like this kind of war chest or fortress? So like you're mentioning 10, like in reality in Seattle, if you had 5 paid off properties, your average is at least $3,000 for rent, right? Yeah. So that would be like a Seattle, or maybe it's like 10 duplexes in Milwaukee, which might be, $2,400 a month for, so now, the key is just if I can get, whether it's 10 there or 5 here, pay those off And that's like the war chest. Don't mess with that. All the rest you can get as much debt on that as possible. Continue to expand. 1031.
Yeah.
Get
like
into bigger
play
stuff.
with that and stuff. But you just have this kind of like this golden, like just like just safe war chest in case anything happens. It's just like this. Your future is set, and then you can go and play and like do whatever you want over here.
Yeah. Because like the whole thing about W2 to freedom is like, you know, one, you got to earn it, and then, you know, and then now I'm in the live phase, but you never want to go back. Once you get out, you got to stay out. The way you stay out is you need to, you know, I was full on risk. You know, now that I left, I'm like, I'm not full on risk. I'm like, okay, well, how can I de-risk and get these like core assets, low debt, if ideally no debt, and then this other stuff I can get full risk over here, because that way I don't ever have to worry about some
like a crash or whatever,
taking the whole thing out. So, and that's kind of what I've been really thinking about for this whole year, and a lot of it's been coming up too. Is that I did a lot of refis like everybody did in 2020. Majority of the loans I have are 5-year commercial debt. So in 25 and 26. I have 20-ish loans coming due, right? Instead of refining at double the rate of interest, I've been purposely selling some of those and rolling into other creative finance,
I see.
lower
term or like
lower the
interest.
debt, blend the debt, the term out, so that I can de-risk my debt exposure. And when I say debt, I mean my interest rate, because I'm going to be going average of 3.5 to like obviously average right now. My most recent like DSCR loans are like 8+%.
Yeah, I mean they've been high recently. So.
Yeah, and obviously they've in the last week or two they've been coming down, but I have to take that risk off the table. Let's just say Powell decides to hold it flat, right?
Yeah.
Like,
well, the thing is, so this is like the good example, because like let's say in 2008, right? Like when like things were crazy. If like you have the cash flow and like the equity to lean on, then you wouldn't lose anything. You just like your value to take a short dip. Maybe like you'd have to like sell some at a discount or whatever it is, because like the loans came due or whatever. But then like you're never at risk for your whole portfolio, because like you have like the de-risk section. Versus like if you're just 100% leveraged, then like when the things go crashing, now you're gonna lose like everything, right? So
well, there's that part of it, but then there's the other part of when the debt level goes up, now the asset can't cover it.
The cash flow,
cash flow can't cover it. So that's the other thing that's you know, a lot of the syndicators from, I'm not a syndicator, but that's what I imagine is happening right now. They had all this short-term debt. Whether they refied and their balloons coming up, or they had like, I don't know, like medium-term mezzanine debt. Now they're getting this much higher debt ratio, and if they haven't increased the rents or converted the units, now they're kind of stuck.
They're in trouble,
So.
And so, I mean, the thing is, like, the more debt you have, the faster you can go, because you're more leveraged, right? So your ROI by default is gonna be higher, because you have less in it. But if you have like more debt, it's also more risky. So as an investor, you're always trying to balance how much like growth and risk do I want to take, and how much like safety and security do I want to take with like less growth or slower growth.
100%. And I'm looking at more of a, you know, almost like a fund advisor, where they're looking at, you know,
like a holistic kind of view of things.
Yeah, some are like high equity plays, some are high, you know, dividend play or whatever. And so I'm looking at my assets like that. So the stuff that I'm buying recently, the two that I bought at the beginning of the year were one. Actually, both of them were leases with the option to purchase.
What's a lease with the option to purchase? Why would you do that, and how does that work?
Yeah, so lease with the option to purchase is actually 2 contracts. One is I agree to lease it from you. Right? That's typical, as if I'm renting it, I'm leasing it. Then separately, there's this what's called an option contract. I have the right, but not the obligation. So what I did is like one of these was like a pay per lead that I got from Need to Sell My Home Fast. And I was like, hey, you know, she sounded like she wanted retail. I was going to sell it to her as an agent retail. But then as the market kind of compressed a little bit, if everything worked perfect after she put 10 to 20K into it, she probably would have been close to break even. And so she's like, hey, like, what if I just sold this house to you And I was like, I could do it, but it would be at the debt level. And so I structured this lease with the option to purchase.
Okay.
Now, some people would be like, well, why not do a sub 2 deal there? I probably could have done sub 2, but sub 2 is a purchase, which means you pay excise now.
I see.
Lease of the option to purchase, I don't own it until I exercise the option to purchase.
I see.
So effectively what I'm doing is, as I'm paying that down over time, the option price decreases over time.
So she's decreasing the option price too for you, so
right?
Because your lease is going towards the purchase as well.
The sum of it. So I'm effectively covering.
It's kind of like a wrap sub 2. Like you're creating your own sub 2 in this. I think there's a lot that you're doing right now. Like it'll take a little while to unpack this, but I've never heard of this before. But it's like the concept is genius because you're de-risking the sub 2 because like you don't have like the bank issues as far as like calling the note due, etc. But then if you're paying down the debt slowly with the lease, it's essentially a sub 2 with just like not. I mean, it's like you get all the benefits with none of like the downsides.
Exactly. Yep. You know, if they're concerned about the note being called due, then I lean towards the lease option. But really, the whole goal there was what is going to work best for you to solve your problem. If they sold right now on the market, best case they probably walk away with maybe $5,000. Worst case, they got to come out of pocket to sell the house.
And they have carrying costs where like they're paying a mortgage every month. Like, so I guess nobody can live in it while you put it on the market and selling it. Like if you want to get the top dollar. And so like there's like, it's very interesting. She had a problem where you came in with this lease option solution. You're like the best solution for you. I mean, for her, but it's also the best solution for you because like it gives you like the ability to exercise or not exercise, let her give her more time, etc.
100%. And that one actually, I'm trying to remember. I think it has, I want to say 10-year option. Okay. And so like,
which is great. So with any time within the next 10 years, you can exercise the option to buy at the pre-agreed upon price. So if the market goes up later, you can just purchase it at that existing price that you purchased it that you agreed upon. If it goes down, you're not forced to buy it if you don't want to.
Right. Now with this, I don't have to. But with this person, like I'm still going to do it. Like,
I mean, it was a handshake deal, right?
Yeah.
So
no, and specifically this one, it's like there's still some equity into it. It's just that equity goes away when you sell because you got the transaction costs, right? But for me, like I'm an agent, I don't, I don't.
And now you have like the whole thing with there's no buyer fees, right? So like that's another crazy thing. But
exactly, but it's pretty much it can't go this way forever. But like in Seattle, like every 7-ish years, to worst case 10 years, it doubles. So if this thing doubles in the 10 years, like it's a no-brainer to buy it, right? So it's structured to where it works for her and her husband because they're like, we don't want to be tied down. They want to get their motorhome. They're gonna retire, and so this gave them the option to take their biggest burden off. And I still keep in touch with them because I'm paying the bill every month and then letting them know how things are going and did you actually retire yet? And so. But they haven't retired yet, but soon. And then they're going to buy that motorhome and then be traveling around.
Very nice, very nice. I mean, I just love the creativity, and it just goes to show like the more like you get skilled as an investor, the more tools you have at your disposal to kind of solve the different problems where it's like if you didn't know this option, you would be having like, hey, let me just list it. They would have like lost some money. But then like now that you have these tools, you can like make a lot more money for yourself and the sellers, right?
100%. And earlier we were talking about virtual mentor. Pace Morby is my virtual mentor. I met him at Tarl's meetup at Limitless, I think 2 years ago. But by that time, like I'd listened to hundreds, maybe even 1,000 hours of his, right? Exactly what he describes in his deals. And I'm like, it's like that one deal. I just need to do that same thing on this deal for mine, because like, I'm not necessarily the smartest guy, but if there's an example, I just take that example and I put it over here. I just reapply. And so, Pace Morby, I've never signed up for any of his courses, but he's just got so much free content. It's you could do deals just from that. Obviously, you can go faster if you sign up for the program, but I'd already done some other programs where like I can pick up a lot just based on what he's saying.
And the thing is, like, once you have like the foundational knowledge of like, let's say from one program, then when you're like, you hear something new, it's a lot easier to absorb because you're not absorbing all of you're absorbing just like a small piece here and there, and you're adding it to the existing body of knowledge you already have. So it's like the more you grow. Now, when I give you like a new idea, you're like, wow, this sounds very similar to this and this, and so like it's very easy for you to like comprehend and immediately apply it because you're already like part of like your existing body of knowledge.
There's that part about the application, and then for me specifically, I had to go find title companies that knew what I was talking about.
Yeah.
It took a lot of them, but now I have this lady, that Old Republic title company, that I call her up. Hey, here's the deal. She's like, "What'd you do now?" You know, but I tell her what I did, and here's the paperwork, and she'll be like, "Yeah, that works," or like, redo Fix this thing on this and send this to me. And I'm like,
that's a very important part, because we do have the same problem here in Hawaii where especially when you're doing creative deals, like a lot of title companies won't touch it. They're like, I don't understand, like the sub 2, the mortgage is in their name. That's like, we don't do, that's not legal or something, right? I'm like,
right.
But then, okay, like just find another title company who understands the process, and then, okay, we totally can do this. Here's the paperwork we need. Here's what you need to do to have like the warranty deed, whatever the things. But it's just finding the right people and the right the right companies.
Yeah. The companies, and then other people that are doing it, and hang out with them. So I was already friends with people that are in Pace Morby's group. So like, you know, they're doing deals, I'm doing deals. And so then if I have a question on a deal, I'm like, hey, like, what do you think if I did this on this deal?
Yeah.
Then they give me their opinion, and then, you know, if they have questions on something, I'll try to help them out.
Very, very cool. So just last question for you. If like, let's say somebody just kind of starting out, they work at W-2 and they want to reach financial freedom in 6 years, what like one piece of advice would you give them?
One piece of advice, like my whole thing, and we haven't talked about this yet, so I'll bring this part up, is people get like analysis paralysis, or they're worried about what other people think of them. Yeah. So first of all, don't worry about that. The older I get, the more it's like, just do your own thing. Yeah. But the flip side is about risk. People think it's risky to get in. I tell everybody, and this is how I thought about risk the whole time, is that it is risky for me not to do it, because that means I'm guaranteed to work longer at the same company that I want to get out of. So if you change your mindset around risk of, you know, it's not safer to not do anything. It's safer to do something. It's how I think of it. So if you flip that risk equation around, that then helps people take action. Because once you get that first deal, the second and the third, they just start coming much faster.
So true. So true. Well, I mean, like, super appreciate your time, man, Justin. Super cool getting to know your story. If you also have like a launching or starting a coaching program as well too. If people want to find out more about you or learn about where they can learn from you, what's the best place to do it?
So right now on Instagram is W2 to Freedom. Okay. On YouTube, it'll be W2 to Freedom. Okay. And then my other real estate handle is just JC Cambra. Okay. Or for JC Cambra on Instagram.
Okay. Well, thanks, bro. Super appreciate your time.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.